John the Baptizer appeared in the wilderness, proclaiming a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. John the Baptist has got to be one of the most interesting biblical characters. While we get some background in the Gospel of Luke as to who John is and where he came from, in today's Gospel, the Gospel of Mark, he simply appears in the wilderness. I like that in the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible, we get that word, appeared. It isn't in all translations. The Greek word from which it's translated means to become or be born or created. I think there's some significance about John the Baptist becoming in the wilderness, but more on that later. If we were to watch a movie version of Mark's gospel, this would be the first scene. John in the desert, wearing camel hair and eating locusts and honey. Everything about him is out of the ordinary. His choice of setting, his choice of clothing, his choice of food. I imagine that if he sounds like an interesting character to us today, he sounded like an interesting character to his contemporaries. Interesting enough that when people heard about him, they left Jerusalem, they left the Judean countryside and went to see him and hear him preach. You have to remember, that means they traveled through rough country by foot for days to get to him. Nobody just stopped by. And he was interesting enough, persuasive enough, dynamic enough that many of them chose to be baptized by him in the River Jordan. On the second Sunday of Advent, in year B of the lectionary cycle, we get John the Baptist. Actually, without any text repeats, we get John the Baptist on both the second and third Sundays of Advent in all 3 years of the lectionary cycle. Considering we hear John the Baptist stories on 2 out of 4 Sundays every Advent, John the Baptist must be fundamental to the season of Advent. What is it about John the Baptist that we can't do Advent without him? Sure, he's interesting. His diet and wardrobe make for great Sunday school conversations with children. But what makes him such a great character to study in Advent is that his message is the Advent message. The Messiah is coming. Get ready. For the last 4 weeks, we've been hearing gospel messages that tell us to get ready. Stay awake. Be prepared. Because the bridegroom, the landowner, the master, the king is coming. What's helpful about John the Baptist is that he gives some specific directions on just how to get ready. The gospel texts of the last few weeks are sort of like the teacher announcing final exams coming up. John the Baptist says exams are coming up and then provides the study guide. The way to get ready is through baptism, repentance, and forgiveness. Baptism, repentance, and forgiveness are all about beginning, the creation of something new life, a fresh start, a clean slate. Mark's gospel was the first gospel message. It was shared in story form by oral tradition before it was written down. It is and was the literal beginning of the good news. It's completely fitting that the Gospel of Mark begins with the statement, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. This isn't just a way to introduce the book. The whole book, the whole Gospel of Mark is the beginning. Of course, we're reading about beginning at the beginning of Mark, at the beginning of Advent, at the beginning of a new church year. I think that makes a good argument for putting this text on Advent 1 instead of Advent 2, but that's a whole separate conversation. This theme of beginning is why it matters to me that John appeared in the wilderness. He began there. His ministry, his purpose came into being in that place. The second Sunday of Advent is sometimes called the Sunday of Prophets. That's the theme of the collect. While we don't read about Old Testament prophets calling people to baptism, they certainly called them to repentance. We think of repentance as being a Lenten activity, and it is, but repentance is for Advent too. There has been a shift to sort of distance the repentance in Advent from the repentance in Lent. That's part of what blue instead of purple is about. We want Advent to feel hopeful and joyful, and we don't want to feel bad about ourselves. But repentance, a return to the beginning, a fresh start, is hopeful and joyful. When I get home from church today, I'm going to start decorating for Christmas. I always wait until St. Nicholas Day, and that's today, and start with our Christmas dishes, which feature scenes from the poem The Night Before Christmas. That means that yesterday I cleaned my house. Now, for the sake of accuracy, that's a regular Saturday morning task at the Caddell household, no matter the liturgical season. But before Christmas decorations start going up, a more thorough cleaning takes place. We dust things that we usually skip because they're hard to reach. Some things get packed away to make room. Silver gets polished. We rearrange the furniture just a little bit. I think cleaning house is a good metaphor for repentance. Our house doesn't get dirty because we're terrible people. It gets dirty because we go out and come back in. We use showers and sinks and toilets. We cook and eat meals. We work on various little projects that we don't take the time to put away. We're busy. To clean my house, I don't have to berate myself for being a slob, but I do have to be honest enough with myself to see what needs to be done and get to work. This is the work of repentance. You don't do it because you're a terrible person. You do it because you can recognize that there are things in your life that would benefit from a little tidying. I'm sure it doesn't surprise you that Saturday morning cleanup is not anyone's favorite Caddell family activity. It isn't fun, but it does feel good when it's finished. When the clutter's been cleared away and the countertops are shiny and the house smells fresh, I feel more ready to begin a new week. And somehow, even though it's more work than a usual Saturday, the cleaning that we do to get ready to start putting up Christmas decorations does feel hopeful and joyful. Cleaning the house makes us ready for a new beginning. Advent is about Christ coming. What are you doing to get ready? Like books scattered on my coffee table that need to be put back in place, what habits or relationships could stand a little straightening up? John the Baptist, Isaiah, and all the prophets called God's people to repentance. Consider how the decorations you put up and the Christmas cards you send are in fact preparing the way of the Lord, are heralds of good tidings. Our epistle from Peter's second letter adds an important piece to keep in mind. While you're doing the work of repentance to get ready for Christ's coming, do it with an attitude of peace. This shouldn't be a time of frantic preparation. I think that's one gift the pandemic gives us this year. We don't have multiple parties to attend. We aren't tempted to go in and out of multiple stores looking for the perfect gift at the perfect price. In a time when the best thing we can do is keep our gatherings small and our outings to a minimum, we have the luxury of a little extra peace. After church today, we're having our annual meeting. We'll wrap up 2020 and talk about plans, our new beginnings for 2021. The gospel was the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ. The good news continues in the work of the church today. I'm thankful to be able to spend Advent with you, to call you to welcome Christ, who has come, is coming, and is already here. What good news. Thanks be to God.